Welcome to this episode of the Smart Leaders Sell podcast. I'm Jessica Lorimer, sales coach and leadership expert, and I am really excited to dig down into today's episode. Okay, welcome to this episode. I'm very excited today because I have been just taking some time, okay? And I don't know whether any of you feel like this, but sometimes when you take some time out, you find it really hard to get back in. Anyone else feel that? Like you have some holiday time or you just have a weekend that's so good and you get to relax and rest and you're just kind of like, why can it not always be like this? Anyone else feel me on that front? And so actually, sometimes it can be quite difficult coming back into the business, even when you love it. You know, I know we're supposed to have this thing around, we really love our business, we chose to do this, we don't want to do anything else, etc., etc., etc. But actually, sometimes it can be hard to get back into productive mode. And I always feel like that after I've had a holiday. So ask me again, beginning of May, when I've had a couple of weeks off, when Sam gets home, and I will be in this exact position yet again. Excited to get back to the business, but also a little bit like, how was I productive? How did that happen? So today I'm just going to share a couple of top tips and tricks to get yourself massively productive. Now you don't have to use this after you come back from a holiday or some time out. You know, I don't think that's necessary, but sometimes we struggle with time management. We struggle with getting productive and kind of doing it on schedule. I think a lot of the time that we struggle with time management and with productivity, it's because we know what we should be doing, but sometimes we just don't want to. Other times we're not feeling inspired. Other times we just feel like everything else is overwhelming us. You know, we're full of clients and we've got client delivery to look at and we've got marketing stuff to do and we've got business admin and then we have life admin, you know, going to the dentist, doing the whole doctor thing. And so it builds up and we start to just get this calendar that is incredibly full. We have a to-do list as long as our arm, and it becomes really hard to filter the productive tasks and what we actually need to be doing and what we can realistically get done in a decent time frame. Okay, so I'm going to give you my quick my quick 10-minute flash tips, there we go, on productivity and time management today, so that you can get yourself focused for the rest of the week and really make big things happen, even if you are making the smallest changes. So tip number one, if it's not in my calendar, it's not happening. And I know that people say this and you know, I know that it's something we hear and we see all of the time. But it's also a reality. Now, I didn't always think this. I kind of used to think that I was the sort of person who could just wing it. And I realized that I am that person. You know, I can just wing it. I can think, yeah, well, it's cool. I'll just leave it to the last minute, because I do work really well under adrenaline. So actually for me, you know, having a deadline is great because I'm like, 5 minutes before that deadline, I can probably crank out that book. I am joking, sort of, but it's true. You know, we all use deadlines a bit like speed limits in a car. Yeah, if you see a speed limit on a road and it says 40 and you're going at 35 because it's raining, because you know you're tired, because it's dark, etc., other people behind you beep at you. And I always remember my driving instructor saying to me, Jess, it's a limit, not a target. You have to take other things into consideration. And that's kind of how I feel about the phrase, you know, if it's not in my calendar, it's not happening. Because for so long, I used to use deadlines as a target, not a limit, right? And when I started reframing that, when I started actually looking at, okay, well, how much easier would my life be if I started scheduling, if I started batching my content in advance, if I started doing things before the deadline? Honestly, in my head, I was like, not really that different, because it would still get done and I would still be able to take time off. But when I looked at how much less stress I would have, that's when it suddenly became valuable to me. And now that's why I always go by my calendar, and it's why it's one of the things that I try and protect as much as possible. And there are certain things that I can't change. You know, I have a certain amount of clients, I have a certain amount of client calls that I have to do, I have a responsibility to my programs, to my memberships, I have those calls that I need to do, I have content that I need to create, etc. But actually, I also have the choice to prioritize. And that's my second tip, is about choosing the priorities that matter most at the current time and putting those into your calendar. You know, when we have these to-do lists that seem endless, and I have had these in the past, and sometimes in my business, you know, when we're going through a really busy phase, I still have them. You know, create that launch page, write that email sequence, hire that person for the team, find time to train them, do that client onboarding, make sure that welcome pack is filled out, check on my paid groups. You know, these tasks are huge. And if you have them on that kind of to-do list, it feels endless. And when you look at it, it stacks up and you kind of think, oh, I don't really want to do that anymore. It feels like hard work before you've even begun. And that puts a lot of us off. So what I always recommend to do is look at what's my key priority right now in my business. Is, you know, one of those priorities is always going to be client delivery. My clients have to be prioritized at all times, because ultimately I want to make sure that they get the very best experience, but also they get the very best results. And that doesn't happen if I'm not on form when I'm showing up to coaching calls and when I'm doing the work. Yeah. But another priority in my business, you know, may change depending on what I'm doing and what my core focus for that particular quarter is. You know, for some people, it's about revenue. If you need to generate cash in your business at the moment, if revenue is your top priority, then actually you need to be scheduling into your calendar revenue generating activities and spending your time prioritizing those activities. So whether it's that you do them first thing in the day to get them out of the way, to see how they're going to impact the rest of your day or week, it doesn't matter, you know, but that revenue generation activity needs to come first. You know, a priority for you might be around building your brand and building your visibility. So it might be that you do those branding and visibility activities early in the day, early in the week, so that you can make sure that you're seeing the results, you're able to judge those results effectively over time. And then you might have a priority of learning and development. And this might be personally or professionally. You know, in terms of professional development, you might be doing some CPD, some professional development. You might be going for a certification. You might need to submit coursework for an MBA or another certification that's going to ultimately give you an edge and help you better deliver to your clients. It might be a personal learning. You might want to take more time out for some self-development. You might be reading specific books. You might want to take time out for the gym. If that's your priority, again, it's about scheduling that in and making that happen. Now, there are going to be some things that you have to prioritize because they're business as usual and you just can't get rid of them. You know, accounting, bookkeeping, taxes, legal, and anything else that happens in the day-to-day or has to happen in the day-to-day of your business. You know, if like me, you have paid memberships or paid groups that you have a responsibility to fulfill, then obviously you need to be checking in with those components and you need to be checking in with those participants. But it's about scheduling it into your day so that it doesn't dominate the whole day, so you don't get in a conversation with somebody on Facebook and suddenly you wake up and realize, oh my God, it's 4 o'clock and I started this at 11 a.m. You know, you've got to be taking some time for setting your priorities in your business, scheduling them, and then setting clear boundaries around that time and, you know, not going over. And I think part of that is helped when we start being realistic about the time it takes to complete a task. You know, for me, I know that even if I'm recording a 10-minute podcast episode, for example, it's going to take me about 30 minutes because I want to make sure that I've got my notes for the episode. I want to record it. I want to give myself time for max snoring and having to re-record little bits and bobs. I want to make sure that I have time to upload it after I've recorded it and upload it to Google Drive, which is where we keep our raw files before they get edited, before any other calls, so that I don't just forget about it and walk away and think, oh God, yeah, I recorded that episode, but nobody knows where it is. So a 10-minute podcast episode is going to take me at least 30 minutes. So when I'm booking it into my diary, when it's a priority for me to batch content, I'm going, okay, well, how long is that episode actually going to take me in terms of research, in terms of recording, in terms of uploading, and making sure that everybody who needs access to it has access. A lot of the time we don't do this with our tasks, and that makes it hard for two reasons. One, because we then assume we're going to get a lot more done than we actually do, and it puts us in that position of feeling like a failure. You know, when we don't set enough time for a task and then we don't complete them, we blame ourselves. You know, we're like, oh my goodness, I should have been able to finish that 10-minute podcast episode in 8 minutes. You know, and that puts us on a negative to start with, but also it makes it difficult when we hire a team, because we then don't have any idea how long that task should take. And so sometimes it can end up taking us a lot longer to either train somebody else to do it, or it can actually wind up working, you know, out of our favor. We end up going, oh, it'll be quicker for me to do that myself than train somebody else to do it and spend that time training them so that they can take it over. We end up doing it ourselves, and then we're paying, you know, effectively we're paying the dog and barking ourselves. But that's what you need to be thinking about when it comes to being massively productive. It's not necessarily about sticking more tasks on your plate. In fact, it's about streamlining what's there and understanding what is my priority right now. So if you're coming back from a holiday or some time out of your business, maybe start thinking about, well, what's my priority for my first week back? Is it client delivery only? Is it client delivery and sales? Is it client delivery and lead generation, or visibility, or branding, or copy, you know, or content? And actually just try and have 2 key objectives, 2 key priorities per week that will really help you stay on track, because generally the brain can't deal with more than 3 things, you know, more than 3 priorities. So you have your client delivery is always going to be a priority, and then you get 2 others. And generally business as usual, unless you have a team that is able to support you, business as usual is going to be a part of that. So really you get to pick one other thing, one other key focus. Actually, a book that I love about this is Randy Zuckerberg's new book. I don't know whether anyone has actually managed to read it yet. It's called Pick 3, and it's by Randy Zuckerberg. She is Mark Zuckerberg's sister, which I think is really awesome. So she wrote this book called Pick 3, and she basically talks about this concept of you can have it all, just not every day. And I really love it because, again, it goes along this principle of 3. 3 is obviously my favorite number, so we all know I'm a bit weird about that. But she talks about this principle that you pick 3 main deliverables or 3 main achievables, and you can either do it per day, per week, per month, but you need to just pick your 3 that you're going to focus on and do those and do them really well, and then you can start switching them out. So for her, she talks about this across life and business. So you might pick a business themed objective, so something like lead generation, and then you might pick a personal objective like fitness or spending more time with your family. And I really love this concept. So if you haven't read it, make sure you go and check it out on Amazon. It's really, really good. You can get it on the Kindle. You can also grab it in like an audio version, which I have, and it's actually quite soothing. So make sure you go and check that out. But if you are struggling with time management or productivity, really start thinking about what your priorities are. Whether you're just trying to manage too many priorities at once, start taking something off of your plate, focus on doing something really well, and you will actually get more done in half the time. All right, have an awesome rest of the week. I will catch you on Friday, where I will be talking to someone really, really cool. Now, you may or may not have heard of them, but I promise you it's going to be a really interesting episode. And if you are producing video content, it's going to be a really good one for you to listen to. I'll see you soon.